Hello and welcome to Asia News Today, our second program today, and thank you very much to the people who sent in some kind comments about our first edition. Now today, Japan is trying to get its borders open. Amnesty International is urging the Singaporean government not to go ahead with 2 executions today. Cambodia's new internet censorship gateway is being delayed, and Indonesia says they're going to play peacemaker at the ASEAN summit starting tomorrow. All this and a lot more as we whip around Asia in about 10 minutes here on Asia News Today. A new internet gateway in Cambodia, set to be launched today, is being delayed, apparently due to issues related to COVID-19 in the country. When enacted, all internet traffic in Cambodia will be routed through the government-run National Internet Gateway, allowing authorities to monitor online activity, intercept and censor digital communications, and collect users' personal data. But the Telecommunications Ministry spokesman has given no new timeline for the China-style internet gateway. Critics say that when implemented, the gateway will undermine privacy and hamper the activities of human rights defenders as the Cambodian government faces international criticism over a crackdown that they claim is targeted at opposition political voices and parties. The LICADHO, a Cambodian human rights organisation, says that the new law threatens to curtail free speech, access to information and privacy rights in Cambodia, and gives the government unprecedented authority to monitor and control all internet traffic in the country. While fighting with its own Omicron surge, Japan is still planning to ease its cap on the daily quota of passengers from overseas, from the current 3,500 to 5,000 as soon as next month. The government are also considering scrapping the strict 7-day quarantine requirement upon arrival. Non-resident entrants will be required to present certificates showing a negative COVID-19 test result and a 3rd vaccine dose before they'll be allowed back into Japan. With the government stepping up efforts against the spread of the Omicron strain, the border controls introduced last November bar entry by foreign nationals with few exceptions. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says the government is aware that there are various requests from business organisations and regional groups and is considering presenting a plan to ease the border restrictions as soon as possible. International calls are growing for Singapore not to go ahead with plans to execute 2 men convicted of drug trafficking offences. The families of Singaporean Roslan Bakar and Malaysian Possi Jeffreden were informed of plans for the executions today, last week. If the executions are carried out, they'll be the first in Singapore since November 2019. Amnesty International Singapore is urging the city-state to impose a moratorium on executions. Amnesty noted that the global trend towards abolition continues and that neighbouring Malaysia has imposed a moratorium since July 2018 as it considers alternatives to capital punishment. In Singapore, many locals and foreigners are sentenced to death for drug offences. In the lead up to the presidential elections in the Philippines, presidential candidate Ferdinand Marcos Jr., son of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos, has addressed the hot regional issue of sovereignty in the South China Sea. He says he wants his country to have a military presence in the South China Sea, not to fire upon vessels, he says, but to defend its waters in a long-running dispute with China. Marcos is currently leading in the local opinion polls ahead of the May 9 election and appears poised to complete a remarkable rebranding of the family name 36 years after Cory Aquino's People Power uprising ended his father's 20-year rule. Indonesia is hoping to act as peacemaker at this week's ASEAN retreat, where they'll be proposing the creation of an eminent persons group. Most ASEAN foreign ministers are convening in Cambodia's capital city Phnom Penh starting tomorrow amid mounting pressure from the international community to deal with the Myanmar crisis. Indonesia's foreign minister says he wants to improve on the ASEAN bloc's ability to deal with current challenges amid international doubts over the bloc's handling of the Myanmar coup fallout. ASEAN's been unable to broker any moves towards restoring peace in Myanmar, where the coup leaders remain in control whilst rolling out show trials of former leader Aung San Suu Kyi and cracking down on dissent in the country. This week's retreat is Cambodia's first high-level meeting as this year's ASEAN chair, initially scheduled last month but postponed due to opposition over an invitation extended to Myanmar's military regime. While the world tries to ponder the next move of Russian President Vladimir Putin and a potential invasion of Russia's smaller neighbour Ukraine, Asian political analysts are drawing attention to the simmering local version, where China in particular is watching with interest given its own claims over Taiwan. China has boldly and repeatedly declared an intention to reunify with Taiwan, an island off the coast of China that's democratically self-governed but claimed by the People's Republic of China as part of its realm. Whilst no political analysts believe that any moves on Taiwan are imminent, they say both China and Taiwan will be monitoring developments in Ukraine closely. Ian Bremer, the president and founder of consultants Eurasia Group, noted that China has been generally supportive of the Russian position on Ukraine in recent weeks, but hasn't been particularly active in taking a stand. Speaking of Taiwan, Taiwan is planning to relax its strict COVID-19 quarantine rules beginning in March in order to reopen to the world and gradually resume normal life. This from the government. Since the start of the pandemic, Taiwan has enforced a blanket 2-week quarantine on everyone arriving in the island, even while other countries in Asia have implemented reopening strategies, including easing entry restrictions. So far, Taiwan's policy has succeeded in keeping reported cases below 20,000. The government says it wants 50% of the nation's 23.5 million people to receive a booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine before easing entry requirements. New Zealand has now banned conversion practices or attempts to cure LGBT people after all but 8 of the country's Conservative National Party members voted in favour of the law. Conversion therapies, often practiced by religious groups, try to cure people of their sexual identity. The legislation passed last night makes it an offence to perform conversion practices on anyone aged under 18 or with impaired decision-making capacity. It also makes it an offence to perform conversion practices that cause serious harm. Sentences for people still using these practices will include 3 to 5 years imprisonment. The Justice Select Committee received nearly 107,000 public submissions on the law, the highest number of public submissions received on a piece of legislation in New Zealand. The founder of the Conversion Therapy Action Group said the ban on conversion therapy is a win for humanity, not just the queer community in New Zealand. New Zealand has the highest youth suicide rate in the 38 OECD member countries. Finally, it's a public holiday in Thailand today as Maka Butcher Day is commemorated around the region by Buddhists, the second most sacred day of the Buddhist calendar. The day is commemorated in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia and Sri Lanka. That's all the main news stories from around the Asian region today, and we'll be back again with another Asia News Today tomorrow.